Right.
Good evening. മാറ്റിനി വെബിനാറിലേക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടി സ്വാഗതം. ഇന്ന് ഒരുപക്ഷെ നമ്മൾ അത്ര ശ്രദ്ധിക്കുന്നില്ല എങ്കിലും വളരെ ശ്രദ്ധേയമായ ഒരു വിഷയത്തെക്കുറിച്ചാണ് കണ്ണൻ സാർ നമ്മളോട് പറയുന്നത്. കാർബൺ കൺട്രോൾ, അതിൻ്റെ ഭാരതം മുന്നോട്ട് വയ്ക്കുന്ന ചില പ്രത്യേക അടിസ്ഥാനങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ചാണ്. ചില ഡിസിഷൻസ് എടുക്കാനുണ്ട്, ചില തീരുമാനങ്ങൾ എടുക്കാനുണ്ട്. കാർബൺ കൺട്രോൾ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് വളരെ നിർബന്ധപൂർവ്വം ഇനിയുള്ള തലമുറയിൽ ആവിഷ്കരിക്കേണ്ട ഒരു പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യമാണ് എന്ന് ഓർമ്മിപ്പിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് നിങ്ങളെല്ലാവരെയും വേദിയിലേക്ക് ക്ഷണിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ കണ്ണൻ സാറിനെ നിങ്ങളുടെ പെർമിഷനോടുകൂടി വേദിയിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യാണ്. കണ്ണൻ സാർ, യു ആർ വെൽക്കം.
Thank you, Dr. Sabu. First of all, many thanks to you. It's an opportunity to discuss a very important and a very current topic. It also happens that I have finished 1 year with Dr. Sabu's group, and today is my 12th talk. I feel very happy about it that I have crossed this milestone. So let us understand this topic a little more. Global warming, carbon emission, these are all terms which are regularly covered in the media today. And most of us are familiar with lots of it, which pertain to our style of living. So let us discuss a little more detail into this. We are going through a very difficult phase in our life at this point because humanity has hurt Mother Nature by some indiscreet, negligent attitude towards environment. And there's a little bit of rebellion from the Mother Nature, which we are seeing in the form of frequent high volume rains, flooding, and landslides, and so many other disasters which are happening to us. All this could be due to some other reason, which we will try and understand very briefly in the initial part of point, after which we cannot reverse it. So there is a need for reversal. Everybody agrees. The UNO had stepped into this way back in 90s, but much attention was not paid to whatever the UN body was saying. It's only by 2015 this topic attracted the attention of political leaders. And from then onwards, every country has taken a step forward to bring in control of carbon emissions. In my title, I said carbon control, but actually it is carbon emission control. I said carbon control. India has also done some steps to make sure that we should control the emissions of carbon dioxide from our industries. So we'll have a look at all this in our discussion today. And I have structured my presentation in 3 parts. The first part pertains to what the UN has said to all countries, what they should do. The second part is what India has committed to the world body, what they will do by 2030. And the third part is pertaining to India's action plan to achieve this. So I will go through this presentation. I will upload my PPT now to you. Are you able to see my PPT?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. So we have got an 8-pronged action plan. and I will come to it. That's the third part, but let me quickly go through the first part and second part. But before that, a short introduction, which I think is very important to each one of you. About 250 years back, I'm going back to 250 years, but that is the time industrial revolution had come and many industries started functioning. So I'm going 250 years back, when Earth's atmosphere had only 0.2% of carbon dioxide. Where did this carbon dioxide come from? All of us breathe out carbon dioxide. Every one of us. We take oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. And few other industrial activities, small activities were there, some agricultural activities were there. So there was very small amount of CO2 released to the atmosphere. And a lot of it was absorbed by trees and vegetation. You know, trees and vegetation take carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and that's how they are able to grow. Now, I give a small bit of data there, which may be of interest to you. Every person like you and me exhales 4 tons of carbon dioxide every year. So there's a sizable amount of carbon dioxide released by human activity. Now, when the sun's light energy hits the Earth's surface, part of it is reflected back as infrared energy. It goes towards the atmosphere and then travels beyond, tries to travel beyond the atmosphere, the infrared waves, but the CO2 stops it. The CO2 layer stops it. So in earlier days, 250 years back, because CO2 was stopping this infrared energy, the atmosphere was keeping the Earth comfortably warm. It was not very cold in the night. It was still keeping it warm. Now what happened? When nature's design was only 0.2%, when percentage is low, the atmosphere is a livable temperature. That's how the nature works. You do require CO2. CO2 is required to trap the heat and keep it at a reasonable temperature in our atmosphere. But what happened in the last many decades, especially the last 20, 30 years, when industrial activity was enhancing, was increasing in all countries, the carbon dioxide percentage went up because we are burning coal, we are burning petrol, we are burning diesel, so many fuels we are burning, and carbon dioxide release, carbon dioxide emission was higher, much higher than what will keep the atmosphere at a comfortable temperature. So again, the same principle, you release a lot of carbon dioxide, sun's energy got reflected back as infrared, but since carbon dioxide is more, it trapped more heat. Earlier it was less, it trapped less heat. Now it is trapping more heat in our atmosphere, and atmosphere has become warmer. This increase in temperature is called global warming. So global, it is taking all over the world because atmosphere carbon dioxide percentage is increased and it is trapping the heat, which was not doing to this extent earlier. So now global warming has led to more heat in the atmosphere, ice is melting, ocean levels are going up, erratic monsoon, and so many things which are happening, which we call today as climate change. So the essential part to this climate change is too much of carbon dioxide being released by industrial activity. Of course, humanity, all the population is also breathing out carbon dioxide, but that's not so much. So much of carbon dioxide is being released by coal, petrol, diesel being burned. That's why the global warming, and rest everything is following. So the reason, primary reason is carbon dioxide emission has to be controlled. Now, I should just clarify to you, it is not only carbon dioxide, it's got carbon monoxide and certain other greenhouse gases. So I'm not going into that detail, but the predominant component is carbon dioxide. Average temperature has gone up by 1.1 degree as of last year, since quite many years. Now, if countries don't control their carbon emission, 1.1 will become 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, it will keep going up, and you will have more and more problem. So there is a need to do this control. So UN stepped in and then said, let us do all this together. Nobody listened to UN for quite some time because they had different views. It was affecting their industrialization. It was affecting their GDP. Now there is consensus, and all countries have agreed. About 165 countries have agreed. India has also agreed. Everybody has set a target. India has also set a target. So we are going to see that how is India going to meet this target. So before that, what was UN trying to say? UN is saying, let us make an action plan, and it started in 1992. You see this graph. In 1992, there was a very famous UN meeting in Rio. It's called the Rio Summit, when the temperature had already come to very close to 0.45 degrees. At the time itself, they said, this is going higher and higher. Let us do something. And they said, let us form a committee. So they formed a UNFCCC committee. And then they also had a committee called Committee of Parties called COP. You will keep seeing in the paper COP5, COP6, which takes place, the meeting takes place every year. How to prevent risk to India, to Earth's environment. And the first meeting was held in 1995 in Germany, followed by regular meetings. The most important meeting took place in 2015, when the temperature had reached 0.9, almost 1. So when the temperature reached almost 1 degree above normal, this is the average temperature of the world. So some countries will have more, some countries will have less. So when it reached almost 1, then a lot of serious discussions took place, major decisions were taken, and that is called the Paris Agreement, which is COP21. So in COP21, the situation was what I'm showing now. I'll spend a minute on the graph. Can you see this graph? China's emission is going up. The highest is China. India is also going up, but it's only till 3 billion tons. But China is very close to 10. Then there is US, almost now reducing. The European Union is also reducing. So what had happened in this Paris Agreement, it was a binding agreement to 193 countries plus EU. And the CO2 emissions, which had increased from 23 gigatons. This giga and billion are same. So you just let us stick to gigatons. Gigatons, CO2 1990 had become 36 in 2015. There's a small subscript there, E, letter E, which means CO2's emission is corrected for other gases based on their atomic weight. So that's only a technicality. Let us leave that aside. And the maximum contribution was China, followed by India. And countries had evolved their plans. CO2 was almost 75% of the greenhouse gases. UN was prepared to fund those developing countries which had to bring new control. And they said, let us review the results after 5 years. After 5 years, they said they'll review the results, especially one parameter. And that's a very interesting parameter. Many of you are engineers in this audience. There is something called emission intensity. If your GDP is, for example, $1 trillion, and your carbon dioxide emission is so many tons, then it is so many tons per $1,000 of GDP. That means it is an indication to you how active is your economy on an industrial front or agricultural front. So it is based on that parameter that they said we'll review it after 5 years. Now what had happened? The scientists started working on it. And there's a very interesting graph which I'm showing on the left. What is pink in color is if there is no control by anybody. If nobody controls their carbon emission, it will be in the pink region. And it will be anything from 4.1 to 4.8 degrees. It will be disastrous. But if you follow Paris Agreement, it will be the orange one, starts slowly coming down, but it will be still between 2.5 and 2.9. But if you meet all the pledged commitments of each country, people have pledged more than what they should be doing. But if everybody meets all the pledged commitments, then it will be this blue line, 2.1. And if you want to go even below that, then you have to do much more than what you're committed. So this is an indication of how serious is the issue. And the only way to reverse a situation of disasters and save the world is by reducing carbon emission. Just give an example. This is a graph which I showed earlier. India is number 3 in the total emission as of now. But per capita, if you look at it, India is well below many other countries. So in 2020, as I told you, India is third place with 2.9. Just remember this number, 2.9 billion tons. Billion and giga are same, so don't worry about it. And India is accounting for 7% of world's emission with 17% population. So we got a lot of people. Our population is very high, the most populous country in the world now with 140 crores people. But we only produce 7% of world's emission. Per capita, obviously highest in USA, Russia, China, etc. India is in 8th place and much lower than the world average of 6.5. We are only 2.3 tons per individual. But India has said it will meet its commitment declared in COP21. So now I finished part 1. I'm going to part 2 to tell you what did India commit in Paris Agreement. Let's look at it. India's commitment at Paris, which is COP21. It was the 21st meeting, but there are many meetings thereafter. So in this part, I will cover India's commitments which have been given in many COPs after Paris also. So let us look at what happened in Paris Agreement. In Paris Agreement, India said 40% of electricity generation in India will be non-fossil based energy. That means we will not account for coal, petrol, diesel. We can produce 60%, but 40% will come from other than non-fossil, maybe solar, maybe hydro, maybe biofuel, maybe wind energy. And in India, we include nuclear also, nuclear, etc. So that is the first commitment we gave. The second commitment it gave was, you remember what I told you about emission intensity? So emission intensity of 2005 was taken as a reference for all countries. India said we will reduce the emission intensity of 2005 by almost 1/3, 33 to 35%. Second commitment. And third commitment, we said we will absorb 2.5 to 3 gigatons or billion tons of carbon dioxide by additional forest and tree cover. These are the 3 commitments which India gave in COP21 in Paris. Same thing which I have written here. So let us go through the action plan. Points were called for each country nationally determined contribution. So India said these 3 we will meet by 2030. What happened? Few years later, the next COP, major COP, where Prime Minister attended, was COP26 in 2021. That is 6 years later. Now India said instead of 3, I will achieve 5. Okay, so let us look at it. What are the details? First, they said, this was the meeting where our Prime Minister attended, and he had announced some additional targets. First, he said instead of 40%, I will achieve 50% non-fossil. Earlier I had said 40% Paris, now I'm saying 50%. That means one step further. Second, we will generate 500 gigawatts of energy from non-fossil, that is solar, wind, hydro, bio, nuclear, etc. Just for information of many people, 500 gigawatts is enough to feed India's entire electricity today. As of today, it is enough. But the years to come, more electricity will be required. So by 2030, they said we'll produce 500 gigawatts of energy from non-fossil, which means some electricity will have to be still produced by fossil fuel. Just remember that. Even though this commitment is 500 gigawatts, something will have to come from coal, something will have to come from natural gas, something may have to come from diesel, etc., etc. Then the next one was, you remember carbon intensity of 2005? We had said we'll reduce by 1/3, 33%. Now we said we'll reduce by 45%. It's a one step further. And we will reduce only 1 billion ton of carbon emissions by afforestation. Now, this is a reversal. In 2015, India had said 2.5 to 3 tons we will absorb by tree cover, afforestation. But now they reduced it to 1 billion ton. While they increased other targets, but this target they reversed by almost 40%. So we'll talk more about it in our action plan. And I'm not talking about net zero. The net zero is 2070. We'll talk about it in another lecture later. So the next meeting took place in Dubai, and the motto was from mindless destructive utilization. That was the motto of the COP meeting which took place in Dubai. That means we should not utilize the Earth's resources mindlessly and in a destructive manner. Instead, we should do mindful and deliberately consume the Earth's resources. In this case, Earth's resources are coal, fuel, diesel, petrol, etc. So this is the meeting in COP27. I'm sorry, it is not Dubai, it is Egypt in 2022. Correction, it took place in Egypt. And in this meeting, 50 million pounds, $50 million was committed for the next 5 years for by developed countries, for developing countries. So some money will come, including to us, because we are also a developing country. And few other points got discussed regarding water security, disaster management, wind energy, etc. But important point for us, India set up a pavilion in COP27 at Egypt called LIFE. And many of us have taken part in LIFE demonstrations and other protocols in our respective institutions. It's Living for the Environment. LIFE was set up by India, and it was very well received in COP27. That's the last meeting. But the next meeting is going to take place in Dubai in COP28. It is November 23, and where they would look at the various progress and their mottos, connecting minds and creating the future. So the world as such, the countries, 193 countries have put their heads together, and they already come to a conclusion. We have to connect our minds to create the future of the world, future of the earth for the next generations. Otherwise, we'll be handing over environment which is completely ravished, and we would be having disasters after disasters. So India's action is going to come under close observation in the next COP28. I finished with the second part. Now I am coming to the last part. A bit lengthy it will be, but I have to go through 8 action points. So let us start. What is India's 8-pronged action to meet the targets of COP26 in 2021, which our Prime Minister addressed, where we enhanced 3-4 targets, but we reversed 1 target. So all this will be covered in this action, in this part. But before that, let's look at the India's emissions as of 2020. You look at coal, maximum is coal. India has got nearly 70% from coal, balance 20 odd percent is from oil, and our total emissions around 2.8 billion. I had told you in 2022 it had become 2009 billion. And it is important, just remember, our fertilizer plants, our steel plants, our thermal power plants, most of them burn coal to get their products. There's a reason for it, why they burn coal. They can work in natural gas also, but they need to burn coal for some process to happen in their factory. We'll touch upon it a little later. As I told you, 22% is by fossil fuel, mostly used for road transport, water transport, trains, aviation fuel, etc., etc. And 7% is by natural gas, which are used in some power plants. So there are only some power plants in India which work on natural gas. Majority of them work on coal. So what will happen to electricity generation to us? If coal is not to be burned, how are you going to manage? That's an interesting point. I will touch upon it as we go along. So India's 8-pronged action, I'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. First one, generate as much solar energy as possible. Next, harness wind energy to the extent we can do it, both onshore as well as offshore. We haven't started offshore yet, but soon we'll be starting. Decarbonize steel and fertilizer plants. How are you going to do this? This is going to be an interesting one for those of you engineers in this audience. We're going to decarbonize the steel and fertilizer plants by some other process change. And we will not allow coal to grow further. Whatever we have done up till now, we will try and keep it there only, no further growth or very little growth for coal-based thermal plants, even though they are the most dangerous because their content, especially Indian coal ash content is very high. So they produce a lot of carbon dioxide. So government has decided limit the growth of coal-based thermal plants in the years to come. Don't shut down, but don't allow to grow. Bring in electric mobility, that is electric scooter, electric car, electric train, etc., etc. Get into extensive afforestation. You remember in COP26, we reversed our target. We brought it down, saying obviously there is a doubt whether you could do that much afforestation. When we come to this action plan, we will discuss that. Change your lifestyle. Some interesting points have come, and I will touch upon that when I open that slide. And bring in some new laws, etc., so that the change which will come in the environment is addressed to by legal terms. At the same time, we'll allow our economy to grow. Without disturbing economy growth, we should bring in all this changes in our energy sector, in our transportation sector, bring in changes to your lifestyle for each citizen, etc. So let me go through each one of them. First is generate solar energy. We want to achieve nearly 280 gigawatts of solar energy, but we are only at 73 now. So we have to jump to 200, nearly 200 more we require the next 7 years by 2030. I don't know how we will do it, but the government has got some plans to do it. I'll just share with you. So solar energy, just for background, in 2010, we are happy with 20 gigawatts. In 2015, we made it 100 gigawatts with a condition. 60% will be like solar farms, like you have seen solar farm in the Netimbasheri airport. That's a solar farm. And 40% will be rooftop panels like people have solar panels on top of their terrace. That is called rooftop panels. 40% will come from rooftop. But so far, we have achieved only 73. But the major shortfall has been rooftop. Rooftop has not expanded the way it was expected. But for 2030, we have set a target of 280, which means every year we should add on 26 more. In addition, we have approved 20 million solar water pump for farmers. Today, farmers are using electricity to run their water pump. And that electricity is coming from a thermal plant. And in that thermal plant, we are burning coal. So to stop burning lots of coal, government has decided you don't run the solar pump on electricity, run it on solar pump, and 20 million solar water pumps have been inducted. It is under distribution to farmers so that during daytime, they'll be able to pump water using solar energy. This is a great innovation which has been done by one of our industries. And government has launched PLI. I hope people understand. PLI is production linked incentive. You produce more in the factory, produce more in your industry, you will get tax benefits from the government. 11 firms have been given PLI scheme to produce that much of solar panels, which are required for our target of 280. As it stands, target 280 seems to be realizable. And India will move up from the present position of fourth position in solar power. We have number four in the world. It is expected to go up when we achieve 280. So as far as generation of solar energy is concerned, I think we will achieve the target by 2030, 280 gigawatts. Now let us look at wind energy. This map is very interesting. Wherever there is red color, that means there's wind energy available, including in Ladakh and Leh. Lots of wind energy is available on the west coast, not so much on the east coast. This is primarily because our wind patterns are like that. So to harness the wind energy, India is today already the fourth in the world now with 42.6. We've got huge potential. We can go up to 650 as per a study. As per the study of NIWE, National Institute of Wind Energy, they said we can produce 650, but there's a catch. The wind turbine has to be 120 meters high, which is too much of a height for wind turbines to be installed. They'll be very expensive. It'll be a capital-intensive project. And it will have also a lot of difficulties in installation, erection, etc. So 120 meters height is too much. So we may be able to do at 80 meters when you can get 100 gigawatts of power, wind energy power. Maximum is in Gujarat. You can see the map. Karnataka, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, and Maharashtra. These are the places where you will have maximum power. And in addition to what I have told you, in addition to the 100, 70 will come from offshore wind bank from Gujarat and Tamil Nadu. And this has been a recent change as far as law is concerned. Government has already come out with the documents for outsourcing private industry to set up offshore wind farms. It has already started in the US. It started in a big way in Europe. So it is expected that in India also it will follow, and it will be a part of our overall energy matrix. Now, there's an issue. When you want to have solar and hybrid, the major resource which you are eating is land. You want to set up a solar farm, you require huge areas of land. You want to set up a lot of windmills, you require huge areas of land. So you find there is a difficulty in allocating land to industries for either solar farm or for windmills. So electrical engineers are looking at how to combine windmill and solar in a hybrid station so that either of the energy is available and we'll be able to maximize the use of land as well as the grid, because after all the power has to go to grid. So the grid doesn't have to go to many places. When there's a hybrid farm, it can go in a focused manner where it will get both solar as well as wind energy. So government has also approved 100% FDI and tax incentives for wind sector. Okay, now let us see steel and fertilizer plant, how we can tell them to live without much coal. So let us see that. You look at it, the industries take around 25% of emissions primarily because they are burning coal. For electricity generation, we have no option. We have no option but to burn coal. Solar will come, wind energy will come, but coal cannot go away. Just remember, coal cannot go away from thermal generation of electrical power. You still require them. But industries which are taking coal, especially steel, fertilizer, cement, that can be controlled by a new process. I'm going to speak about it now. You decarbonize the refineries and fertilizer and steel plants with green hydrogen. I'll tell you why this is an interesting concept. Refinery requires hydrogen supplied to it. Somebody has to bring hydrogen to the refinery. Similarly for fertilizer, to make ammonia first. Similarly for steel, hydrogen has to come. So either hydrogen will come through a pipeline, or it will come through bottles, or these factories will produce their own hydrogen, which is what they are doing now. They are burning coal, allowing steam to pass over it, and producing hydrogen. So hydrogen they get, no doubt, but a lot of carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere. So if hydrogen can be given to these industries without allowing them to burn coal to generate hydrogen, then we can reduce carbon emission from refinery, fertilizer, and steel plants. That is the plan. Now, where to get the hydrogen from? Because hydrogen is required in the refinery for desulfurization of the petrol and diesel. For reducing the steel, you require hydrogen. For ammonia, you require hydrogen. So what you do is, you get this hydrogen from somewhere else by another process called electrolysis, which many of you would have done in physics lab. Split water into hydrogen and oxygen. Now, not in a lab, in a huge factory, you split water into hydrogen and oxygen and take that hydrogen. But for splitting, for doing electrolysis, you require electricity. So that electricity you take from a solar farm or from a wind farm, and that is how you give the name to that hydrogen called green hydrogen. It is hydrogen only, but it gets a green name because it is not doing electricity from conventional sources. What is conventional sources? Thermal power plant burning some more coal for giving electricity. Don't take that. Take from a new solar farm, wind farm, or some biofuel run farm, etc., and use that electricity to do the electrolysis to give hydrogen. Now it gets a name, green hydrogen. So if this is done, we will save a lot of coal being burned in refinery, fertilizer, and steel plant, and is expected that we will curb our carbon emission by 30% of the target. Our target is 1 billion ton. 0.3 billion ton will be able to offset by giving green hydrogen. And it's not only we want green hydrogen. All the countries abroad All of them want green hydrogen for similar purpose, but they don't have enough solar energy. They don't have enough wind energy. You remember India is fourth in both this category. So India is also looking at export green hydrogen in a big way to other countries in the next 5 years. It's good for economy as well. So decarbonizing these refinery, fertilizer, steel, these are all called hard to abate industries. They don't give up their habit of producing hydrogen from coal. They have to give up and instead give green hydrogen by some pipeline from an electrolysis plant. All this can be co-located to their factory. The same factory premises, you have an electrolysis plant, you have a wind farm, you have a solar farm, whatever is required, and produce the hydrogen. Now let us see limiting the growth of coal-based thermal plants. As I told you, thermal plants have to continue. You cannot stop them using coal. We have to generate electricity through coal, a significant part through coal. Some are from solar, some are from this. But let us see how the trend is going to be. If you look at this graph, it's an interesting one. Today, we are producing 416 gigawatts of power in the country. We are producing. 57% is from fossil fuel, which is coal, little bit of diesel also, but mostly coal. Now, you look at this table. In 2022, our total is 415 or 16, out of which 214 comes from coal. 24 is coming from natural gas. So these two put together is fossil fuel-based conversion to electricity, which is 57%. And nuclear is only 7, hydro is 47, solar is 69. I told you 73, but 73 was a March 23 figure. In 2022, it was only 69. Wind is 43, bio is 11. So you find your non-fossil is only 42% as of 2022. But we want to change it. The government says, let us keep the coal around the same value. It is 214, maybe small increase to 267 something, but not much. Gas also same level, 24, 25. But nuclear will go from 7 to 19, hydro will go from 47 to 61, solar will go up to 280. We discussed this earlier, it's achievable. Wind will go to 140, we discussed this earlier. And biofuel go 25. So by 2030, we will have 65% non-fossil and 35% fossil. Look at this. Today it is 57 coal plus natural gas versus non-fossil 42. It will reverse to 65-35. So please remember our target one was 50-50. We are exceeding target one comfortably as far as non-fossil component of our energy matrix is concerned. I want to ask you one question. Why do you want 817 gigawatts of power? Because our economy is going to grow. Industries are going to grow in the next 7-8 years. And of course, we are selling some power also to Saudi Arabia and Nepal, etc. So we are generating 817 gigawatts of power by 2030. We are going to generate. So we are changing the composition, more non-fossil fuel and less of fossil fuel by 2030. 65-35, much better than what we thought. Let's come to electrical mobility. Electrical mobility today is causing about 20% of pollution, 20% of carbon emission. We are at this point. If you don't do anything, it will keep on increasing. Emission will keep on increasing further, like this blue line. We are around 330 million tons now. You remember India's 2.8 billion tons. out of which 0.3, that is 300 million, is on transports. If you don't do any control, it'll keep on rising to more than 1.1 billion. But if you do some urban planning, wider roads, less traffic stopping at traffic light, more flyovers, and wider roads, people are able to travel faster, then you'll be able to bring down to the red line. Now, if people are shifting from private transport to public transport, provided the public transport is of good quality, if people are shifting or people are combining metro plus boat service plus last sub cycling, if they're going to do it, these are called model shift. If they're going to do it, it'll come to the orange line. If you're going to increase efficiency of our transports, I will touch upon it in the slide a little later, then it'll become yellow line. But if you go electric vehicle, then it'll drop down to this light green color. And if you bring in alternative fuel, then we will be able to get the dark green line. So we'll be able to bring it down very close to, it's showing 0 here, but it's not exactly possible 0. But there are many steps to be done to reduce carbon emission by transports. So let's quickly go through it. Basically, you can have hydrogen run vehicles or electric run vehicles or trains or inland vessels. Today, I told you it's about 300 million, that is 0.3 billion. Electric vehicles. In India, today there are 14 lakhs vehicles, a little over 14. December 22, it's 14, it may be around 20 now. Every month, 1.5 lakh EVs are added. But our total vehicles in India is 36 crores. So if you want to capture their vehicle population by electric vehicle, it will take us many, many years. So it is not possible to bring electric vehicles in a big way across the entire spectrum of transportation because the numbers involved. Please remember, electric vehicles also require battery. Battery requires lithium, and lithium we don't have. We have to import, and it's available only in China. So there are a lot of other issues in supply chain and availability of components. So there are difficulties in EV becoming very, very popular. Definitely, it will take much more than 15 years for us to capture this target. So what has government done? Government said they introduced PLI scheme for electric vehicle manufacturing called 2 scheme, FAME 1, FAME 2. I will not go into details, but they introduced PLI scheme for vehicle manufacturers so that they produce more, they sell more, and petrol and diesel consumption comes down, less emission. They brought a policy for scrapping old vehicles. If you're having more than 15 years a vehicle, the scrapping policy was changed. If you sell the car, you will get a rebate in the new car. This is the policy which government brought. You sell off your old car, which is more than 15 years, you will get a discount in the new car. Then they brought a new type of fuel called E20. It is not available in Kerala now. It will take some time, but it's already made and operationalized and distributed in Northeast. In Assam is the refinery. It is blended with 20% ethanol, which produces less carbon emission. So that is the new alternative fuel which has come. Of course, hydrogen run vehicles are also trying to compete in the market. After doing all this, after doing everything, I don't think in India we will be able to reduce carbon emission in transportation by more than 30 million. That is 0.03 billion because of many constraints which we have. So on the mobility sector, we don't expect much carbon emission to come down. You may have new cars being produced as per new Bharat standard by which the emission control is there, pollution check is done frequently, etc. But EV cannot substitute diesel or petrol-driven vehicles in the near future. It will take time. So let's go back to see the next one. Afforestation. It's interesting. India wants 1 billion ton to be reduced in emission. I told you this target in 2021, Prime Minister's announced in Glasgow in COP26, out of which green hydrogen will take 0.3. So 0.3 is taken care of. And little bit by transportation, 0.03. But still you have balance of 0.67 billion tons, which we have to observe. Now I'm going to give you some statistics which may be of interest to you. 50 trees are required to absorb 1 ton of carbon dioxide. 1 ton of carbon dioxide you want to absorb from the atmosphere, you require 50 trees. You know trees absorb carbon dioxide. So if you want to absorb 0.067 billion tons, you require 3,350 crores trees to be planted the next 7 years or 8 years. 3,350 crores. That means every Indian citizen has to at least plant about 25 to 30 trees in the next 8 years. It's a very, very tall requirement. So if you're thinking of 3,350 in the next 8 years, every year you plant 420. India's population is 140. So every person has to plant 3 trees every year. Then only we can catch up. Then there is something called mangrove forest, which are in the water bodies, which absorb higher level of carbon dioxide, much more than normal trees. They have to be protected. Of late, there has been some concern that they are being denuded. So that also has to be protected. But one doesn't have to, it is that the government is taking care of mangrove forest, but plantation of trees has to be done by citizens at the panchayat level, at the district level, state level, etc. Like that it has to happen. Therefore, this requirement of absorbing 1 billion ton by green hydrogen and trees is a target which is very, very difficult for us to achieve. One has to very closely see how many trees we plant, because in 2022, you planted only 215 crores. And scientists and analysts are questioning this number also, that apart. So there is a difficulty in achieving this target. So our final absorption by reduction in absorption may fall short due to afforestation and green hydrogen. We'll have to see this. But as citizens, we have to make sure that this is an important activity which we'll have to make sure in schools, colleges, institutions, offices, panchayats, and corporations everywhere, we'll have to give a lot of importance for tree plantation. So let's see the next one. That is changing lifestyle. So we have to change our lifestyle for aiming at mindful, deliberate utilization. We have to stop. I'm sorry. Mindful, deliberate utilization has to be done instead of mindless and destructive consumption. This is what the Lifestyle for Environment Life program is about. It's the seeking a change, individual and community behavior. Behavioral changes cannot happen immediately and take time. So this has to be worked at. A few things are being recommended as a part of this program. First, stop this culture of throwaway, be it your clothes, be it your domestic items, be it your electronic goods, be it your other items, wooden items, this or etc., or any other plastic item. transit from throwaway to reduce, reuse, and recycle, which is called circular economy, which has to be done. So we have to think. So if you don't want a set of clothes, you've outgrown them, they become too old, don't throw it away into the garbage. Hand it over. There are agencies which will take this and reuse them in whatever manner they want to do. So you make sure that you're enabling recycling of resources without having to demand fresh resources from nature. Conserve water and electricity. Water we already talked about because that's a very important component for sustainability. Electricity, of course, you have to conserve. Otherwise, you will be wanting thermal power plants to burn more fuel. Plant a tree. Actually, it's not one tree. You have to plant many trees in a year. Try to use public transport as much as possible if it is good enough so that you can avoid private vehicle, and share vehicles wherever there are regular journeys, going to office, going to school, or going to some other place. Try and share vehicles. Important. Shift your diet from meat to seafood proteins. Why? Meat requires much higher value of virtual water, which is another scarcity, which will affect our sustainability, while seafood does not require so much of virtual water. So these are the things which have been suggested by the shifting in this. Now we come to what are the other issues regarding regulatory measures. As per government report, which is submitted to UN in 2021, we have already achieved 20% reduction in emission intensity. I told you about emission intensity, so many tons per $1,000 in GDP. We have already achieved 24% because our economy has gone up and emissions not gone up so much. So that brings down your emission intensity. If you can, economy is going up and emissions are coming down, then the savings is even more. So we already achieved 24%. Domestic carbon market legally has been activated December 22. That means you can sell carbon, what you have saved, to another industry which is looking for carbon savings. So this trading has been permitted by the new bill on energy conservation. Sometime in December 22, new law has come. All domestic appliances are labeled with energy efficiency grading by Bureau of Electrical Energy. A is the highest and G is the lowest. So when you buy a fridge or a washing machine or a microwave or some other appliances, please look at this grading which has been put, whether it's A, B, C, whatever it is. A has got the highest efficiency. Vehicles are all following Bharat standards BS6 now, so that they don't pollute much. National Air Quality Index has not changed since 2009, and there's a change required. This is one area where regulatory measure has not kicked in. And because we have done all this, and since we have produced a lot of solar energy and wind energy, India stands number 8 out of 63 countries in our efforts to bring climate change. So that is a very good step which we have taken. So we have seen these 8 steps. The area which is worrying is electric mobility will not kick in as fast as we think. Afforestation will not produce high absorption. Targets cannot be achieved. And regulatory measures require to be changed for air quality index. Otherwise, things are looking positive. So let us look at, Okay, so let us look at the summary of our carbon targets and likely results. We had 4 targets in COP26. ratio, fossil to non-fossil, capacity not less than 500, absorption by 1 million ton, and emission intensity. Let's look at the results. 60-40 is what we said in COP21. We made it 50-50 in COP26, but we are going to achieve 65-35, which is very good. Non-fossil capacity, we are going to exceed 500 to 525. 1 billion ton absorption, I think this is going to fall short. I have said 10%, but it could be more. But this is something which has to be watched very closely, what happens by 2030. And lastly, emission intensity, we said 33 to 35, 1/3. Then we said 45. We already achieved 24, so this seems to be achievable. Overall, if you look at it, except for target number 3 pertaining to afforestation, we are going to have a fairly good compliance to the targets which we have set for our carbon emission control. And I'm sure our present ranking of 8 in the world for this control factor will further improve when we come closer to 2030. So in the conclusions, India announced it in 2030 during Paris and then changed in Glasgow, some increase and some decreased. I told you 50-50 has been achieved, much more than that, 65-35, 400 gigawatts achieved, more than that. Green hydrogen is expected. I want to tell you, green hydrogen, the first plant has been set up in Leh, Ladakh, 1 month back. And electrolysis plant has been set up and they've started making green hydrogen for their whatever industries which are there, but there are not any steel plants or fertilizer plants there. And this electrolysis plant which has been set up, it has to be done by industry in a big manner, the mega manner in many other states and many other cities. But they have to tackle steel, fertilizer, cement, very difficult, and as well as transportation. So these are the difficult sectors which green hydrogen has to penetrate and make sure they're able to reduce emission. Steel, fertilizer, cement seems to be fairly under control from at least economist point of view. Mobility is going to be a bit of a problem. It will take some time. 45% is going to be reduced, as I already talked about, but afforestation is going to be falling short. I said 10%, it could be even more later. So the period from 2023 to 2030 is a testing time for the world, more specifically for India and our citizens, as it's a time for us to demonstrate our resilience and commitment to save the world. We have almost reached the tipping point on global warming. We have to reverse it. Everyone has to do it. So all of us need to do it. And our government's 8 action plan I've already highlighted to you. And each one of us is going to roll a lifestyle. Some changes are there. Some requirements are there regarding our mobility, how to control carbon emission, as well as how we can conserve as individual citizens on electricity and water. With this, I come to conclusion. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. I'm stopping my presentation sharing.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. A wonderful
You're still
class.
here? You're traveling now or you're...
Yes, I am traveling. Still, I am stopped now. So, thank you, sir. Carbon control ne kuriche itra manoharamai. പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് 2030 നമ്മൾ സ്വീകരിക്കേണ്ട കാര്യങ്ങൾ, ഫോറസ്റ്റേഷന്റെ ആവശ്യകതകളെ കുറിച്ചൊക്കെ സാർ വളരെ കൃത്യമായിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞു. താങ്ക് യു വെരി മച്ച്. ഐ തിങ്ക് ഉലകണ്ണൻ സാർ, കെൻ യു ഷെയർ? വൺ മോർ. സാറ് കഴിഞ്ഞ 1 വർഷമായിട്ട് 12 ക്ലാസ്സുകൾ, ഓരോ മാസവും ഒരു ക്ലാസ് എന്ന നിലയിൽ വളരെ മനോഹരമായി ഒത്തിരി റിസർച്ച് ഓറിയന്റഡ് ആയിട്ട് സാർ അടുത്തതിന് പ്രത്യേകം നന്ദി. നമ്മളെ ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാമിലേക്ക്, ഈ ഗ്രൂപ്പിലേക്ക് ചേർന്ന് വന്നതിന് പ്രത്യേകം നന്ദി അറിയിക്കുന്നു. താങ്ക് യു സർ. Sir, please.
Thank you, Sabu.
ഈ 1 മണിക്കൂർ നേരം am I audible, sir? എന്നെ കേൾക്കാമല്ലോ അല്ലേ?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
I can hear you.
ഓക്കെ ഓക്കെ. ഈ ഒരു മണിക്കൂർ നേരം വളരെ കൃത്യമായ ചില കാര്യങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ച്, കാർബൺ കൺട്രോളിനെ കുറിച്ചും അത് നിയന്ത്രണാതീതമായി നമ്മളിൽ നിന്ന് വിട്ടുപോയ ലോകരാഷ്ട്രങ്ങളെ തന്നെ, ലോകത്തെ തന്നെ ബാധിക്കുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ചും ചില പാക്റ്റുകളെ കുറിച്ചൊക്കെ സാർ പറഞ്ഞു. വളരെ കൃത്യമായ കാര്യമാണെന്ന് എൻ്റെതായ രീതിയിൽ എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലാകും. ഞാൻ അതിലേക്കൊന്നും കടക്കുന്നില്ല. നമുക്ക് ഭാരതത്തില് നമുക്ക് നമ്മുടെ സ്റ്റേറ്റിലേക്ക് തന്നെ തിരിച്ചു വരാം. ഇതിനെ ഈ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളെ കൺട്രോൾ ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് നിർദ്ദേശങ്ങളുണ്ട്, പ്രവർത്തന ശൈലിയുണ്ട്. കേരളത്തെ സംബന്ധിച്ചിടത്തോളം ഇതിൻ്റെ എക്സിക്യൂഷനിൽ വളരെയേറെ പാളിച്ചകളുണ്ട്. നമ്മുടെ ഭാഗത്തു നിന്ന്, നമ്മുടെ സർക്കാരിൻ്റെ ഭാഗത്തു നിന്ന് കൃത്യമായ ഇച്ഛാശക്തിയോട് കൂടിയൊരു പ്രവർത്തന മണ്ഡലം ഇതിനകത്ത് ഏർപ്പെടുത്തിയാൽ നമുക്ക് നമ്മുടെ രാജ്യത്തിന് വേണ്ടി ഈ കാർബണിനെ കുറവ് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് കഴിയും. അഫോറസ്റ്റേഷനെ കുറിച്ച് സാറ് പറഞ്ഞു. ഇവിടെ നടക്കുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഉള്ളിലേക്ക് പോയാൽ തിക്ക് ഫോറസ്റ്റിലെ നല്ല തടികൾ വെട്ടിമാറ്റി കുറെ കുഞ്ഞൻ തൈകൾ കൊണ്ട് വെച്ച് പിടിപ്പിക്കുന്ന ഒരവസ്ഥയാണ് ഇവിടെ ഉള്ളത്. ആർക്കോ വേണ്ടി ആ നമ്മുടെ പ്രകൃതിയിൽ നമുക്ക് വേണ്ടി വളർന്നു നിൽക്കുന്ന ഈ സംഭവങ്ങളെ മുറിച്ചു തള്ളി ഒരു 15 വർഷമായിട്ട് അത് തുടർന്നുകൊണ്ട് പോവുകയും പുതിയ മരങ്ങൾ വെച്ച് പിടിപ്പിക്കുന്നു എന്ന് കാണിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നൊരവസ്ഥയാണ് നമുക്കുള്ളത്. രണ്ടാമത്തെ കാര്യം, സൂര്യതാപം ഉപയോഗിച്ച് വൈദ്യുതി ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നതിന് കറക്റ്റായ മെത്തേഡ്സ് നമുക്ക് കിട്ടി. കൊച്ചി വിമാനത്താവളത്തിൽ അത് വളരെ ഭംഗിയായി ചെയ്തു തീർത്തിരിക്കുന്നു. അത് റിസൾട്ട് നമ്മൾ കണ്ടു. പക്ഷെ മുന്നോട്ട് പോകുമ്പോൾ വീടിൻ്റെ മുകളിലുള്ള ഈ കാര്യങ്ങളിലേക്ക് പോകുമ്പോൾ കുറച്ച് വലുതായി അത് ചെയ്യുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അയാൾക്ക് അയാളുടെ ചെലവുകൾ, ആദ്യകാല ചെലവുകളാണ് ഇവിടെ പ്രശ്നം. എല്ലാ വീടിൻ്റെ മുകളിലും ഈ സൂര്യതാപ പാനലുകൾ നമുക്ക് വെക്കാനായിട്ട് കഴിയും. ആദ്യ ചെലവുകൾക്ക് വേണ്ടി ചെറിയ രീതിയിലുള്ള ധനസഹായം സർക്കാരിൻ്റെ ഭാഗത്തുനിന്ന് കിട്ടുകയാണെങ്കിൽ ഒത്തിരി ആളുകൾ ഇതിലേക്ക് വരും. നമുക്ക് അനാവശ്യമായി ഉണ്ടാക്കപ്പെടുന്ന കാർബണെ ഒഴിവാക്കിക്കൊണ്ട് സൂര്യതാപത്തിൽ നിന്ന് എനർജി നമുക്ക് കിട്ടും. ഞാൻ പറയാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചത് ഇത്രയേ ഉള്ളൂ. നമ്മുടെ സാഹചര്യങ്ങളെ പൂർണ്ണമായി മുതലെടുക്കുന്നത് ആദ്യത്തെ ഇൻവെസ്റ്റ്മെന്റ് ഭാരമുള്ളതാണ്. അത് കുറയ്ക്കാൻ സർക്കാർ മുന്നോട്ട് വരികയാണെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് ഈ പദ്ധതികളെ വളരെ വിജയപ്രദമായി മുന്നോട്ട് കൊണ്ടുപോകാനായിട്ട് കഴിയും. എൻ്റെ വീട്ടിൽ പാനൽ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ എനിക്ക് മറ്റൊരാളെ ആശ്രയിക്കേണ്ട കാര്യമില്ലല്ലോ. ആ എക്സസ് കറണ്ട് സ്വീകരിക്കുന്നതിന് ചില നിയമ നടപടികളൊക്കെ ഉണ്ട്. അത് സാധാരണക്കാരന് ദഹിക്കുന്നതല്ല. ആ ഒരു സൂചകം കൂടി ഞാൻ തരികയാണ്. ഇത് പൂർണ്ണമായും നടപ്പിലാക്കേണ്ടത് മനുഷ്യരാശിയുടെ നിലനിൽപ്പിന് തന്നെ അത്യാവശ്യമാണെന്നൊരു വാക്കുകൂടെ പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് സാറിന് ഒത്തിരി നന്ദിയുണ്ട് ഇങ്ങനെയൊരു ക്ലാസ് നമുക്ക് തന്നതിന്. താങ്ക് യു സർ. താങ്ക് യു വെരി മച്ച്.
Thank you very much. I have nothing to say. We have to make sure that it works, especially on rooftop solar plants. The appropriate policy has to be implemented, evolved by governments to do it. But my idea to get across to you was this action plan which we have made. We are succeeding in many cases, but one or two areas we are not going to be successful. This is my feeling. And one of them is afforestation. Lot of forests are getting damaged by landslides also. A lot of trees are getting damaged, but there's a need for concentrated attention to this. Thank you.
Vijayaraman sir. Vijayaraman sir.
Yeah, thank you, Samson. First of all, I would like to thank Kannan sir. It was a very nice presentation and it was very much useful. And this is the current topic. This is to be the current topic. So if you understand this properly, this global warming and its effects, we are daily experiencing it. That catastrophic effects telling about Kerala, 2 floods continuously. Big, so this one, Mahapralayam. This one, we are now sure that it is because of that. Then, see, now I'm staying in Tripudithra, Edur area. This Sattachamam, our cultural event. See, this tableaus, the biggest attraction. Now they got sunburn. Never experienced such. See, this has become common now in Kerala also. God's own country. Sunburn, then droughts, and what is called what you told high intensity rains. These all are the results of global warming. These are the results of the global warming. So it is very well understood by us. Has to be understood by us. Still, we are not bothered, but and you said afforestation. We are behind. It was 150 trees within 8 years. So I wondered, 150 trees in the sense, what is the size of the trees? I wondered. See, sir, I have done PG diploma in environmental and sustainable development with IGNO. I was in this field I think 1997 to 2008. Then I went to Saudi. Then I lost the connection. And now I am here with some psychology. This is my subject. Thank you for reminding.
Thank you. I just want to add, while we can control the carbon emission by us, maybe by using less of diesel, less of petrol, etc., etc. Trees are the only way we can absorb carbon dioxide. One is we produce less carbon dioxide. But whatever we have produced, it goes to the atmosphere. Somebody has to absorb it. Trees is the only nature's method of absorbing. Trees and water, sea, ocean absorb. So there is a need for us, at least on our land mass, to make sure there are enough trees available to absorb whatever has been emitted. If not anything else, at least humans breathe out, exhale carbon dioxide. Somebody has to absorb that.
Yeah, that's carbon dioxide. Think of carbon dioxide. First it comes trees only. And what you say is we are not forestation, we are not doing, but we are damaging the forest still.
So it's a very serious issue. And it's not easy to have quick results. So authorities should pay attention to this aspect.
This is what I agree. What I call innovation is the biggest option. Innovations, this is what you respect, that it's hydrogen and that decarbonizing the major industries. This will be the best option.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody else? Yeah. I can only read as Bina, but I know we have met sometime back in Trivandrum.
Herr Kannan, it was a good talk. Thank you very much.
Premchand,
Yeah.
you are in USA or in Trivandrum?
I'm in USA now, back in Florida.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, a good topic, appropriate for India. And India is doing a great job compared to many other industrialized countries. And just have a comment about, I think it was somebody commented about rooftop solars. I think India is doing the right thing by doing massive solar panel installations like the one in Rajasthan, rather than do 5 kilowatt or 1 kilowatt units on every roof, because it doesn't pay back. Because if you have a rooftop solar, you still need the electricity board, the generating capacity to be maintained at 100%, because the demands are often happen at night or on cloudy days. So you're penalizing the electricity board by requiring them to maintain the capacity, but you may not use them on some days. So the better option is what India is doing, like Adani's power plant in Rajasthan, where they're creating gigawatts of power and feeding the grid on the national grid. That's a very common sense approach.
Premchand, the biggest solar farm in the world
it's
is in Rajasthan.
Yeah. that is the best way to approach this utilization of solar energy. So I beg to differ with the other gentleman who said rooftop solar. Rooftop solar is many, millions of units, which really don't reduce the demand on the grid.
Yeah, I agree. The utilization of the grid will be less, except in peak hours. So there is a problem. The electricity board would have created your infrastructure, but you're not drawing from it because you're taking from rooftop.
Right.
This is something which has to be worked out at state
So what
level, how the
happens-
policies are to be done.
Yeah. So
I
what
agree.
happens in the US is since all the utilities are private companies, they have gone to the government asking for loss coverage from the consumer because they have to maintain the capacity, both generation and distribution. So you may have a solar panel, but you pay for maintaining the grid.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I suppose that's a very sensible way of doing it.
Yeah.
Friends,
So
and
what?
thank you very much for joining from US. Okay.
Yeah.
Beena's
Okay.
husband wanted
I
to
have
say
to go now.
something. Yeah. ഇവിടെ
കാർബൺ എമിഷന്
ബീന
കാർബൺ എമിഷൻ കുറയ്ക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി കേന്ദ്ര ഗവൺമെന്റ് ചെയ്യുന്ന പരിപാടികൾ വളരെ സക്സസ്ഫുൾ ആയിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ. എന്നിട്ട് എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് നമ്മുടെ ഇന്ത്യയിലെ കാർബൺ എമിഷൻ സ്റ്റീപ്പായിട്ട് കൂടിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്? നമ്മുടെ ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി വളരുന്നത് കൊണ്ടാണോ?
Yeah, so I'll answer that. If you look at the growth of economy, you know, our economy GDP is 3.75 trillion at this point of time, 3.75 trillion. If you look at what it was earlier, all this has happened by industry starting production, services sector doing very well, etc., etc. But all of them require power. And today in India, power is generated mostly by coal-based thermal plants, period. Little bit by natural gas. So as long as our industries are growing and you want to reach 5 trillion economy or beyond, industries will have to work, more industries will come, more power is required, more coal will be burned. So if you recall, when it came to coal, I had mentioned, I don't think the coal consumption in India is going to reduce. It is going to slightly increase, but the pollution caused by coal-based thermal plants will continue, barring some changes in technology coming for reducing emission. One of them is based on supply chain. Indian coal is notorious for its carbon content. So if you use Indian coal, you will produce a lot of carbon dioxide. So you have to import coal, and which we have been doing. We have been importing coal from Indonesia, Australia, etc. So we'll have to import coal, run the thermal power plants in India, suffer the carbon emission they are producing, but give electricity to industries which are helping our economy. That is why UN has decided emission intensity will be so many tons per $1,000 in GDP. If you have to have growth in economy, there will be carbon emission. You can't, unless you are in France, where 50% of power comes from nuclear power plant. India has only 10%, not even 10%, 9% for nuclear power plants. It's clean energy, all right. But we don't have that many power plants, nuclear power plants in India. We have to grow. So there is a need for the next 10 years, 15 years, coal will continue, coal-based thermal plants will continue to run. Maybe they'll use imported coal much more than what you're using now. Any other question?
Kannan, Kannan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Actually, you didn't leave us any for any questions to ask because your lecture was so vivid and so covering everything.
Who's speaking?
Sorry?
Who's speaking?
Srikumar.
Sri. Sri, parayu, Sri.
Yeah. Regarding this forestation in Kerala, I still doubt because of this concrete jungle. Increase of concrete jungle, the ecology, commitment to ecology is very difficult in Kerala. especially, then even for planting a tree, it's a difficult proposition because nobody is there to do so. And there should be some strict regulations should be enforced for cutting trees. Because if you can't plant tree when you don't have any hardly any space to plant it. But even if you cut the trees, then it is very difficult. Kerala, it is very, very difficult to maintain this ecology. Very difficult. We cannot have it.
ശ്രീ എല്ലാരും കൂടെ ചേർന്ന് ഒത്തുപിടിച്ചാലേ നടക്കുള്ളൂ.
That I agree. Kerala നടക്കില്ല because it is every day we have hardly any space to plant a tree.
We are a very diverse country. There are people who are evolved policies after thinking through various constraints and various benefits. If afforestation is one example, which Kerala State Electricity Board is finding difficult to do it. No, generally afforestation schemes are time consuming, but it has to be driven at a higher level in the government machinery. It cannot be left to just one department trying to do it, and they may not be able to. But it's an important issue. We have to do it as much as we can. As such, we are falling short of target.
And also these rooftop solar plants and water preservation of water should be made mandatory for when you issue building license for houses.
It is supposed to be there as a part of rule.
In Tamil Nadu, they are enforcing it, but in Kerala,
yeah. So that's what Dr. Olaran has said. No, there should be a method for financing the initial capital expenditure. Everybody may not be able to afford the expenditure of solar panel and the changeover circuit, etc.
When you are going for a 1 crore or 2 crore house investment for a house, why not include this also? It is coming. It is a willpower. It should come.
I think we are doing fairly well as far as solar energy is concerned. We will meet the target, and the industry has come really forward. Some 7-8 industries have already started making solar panels in the country. Of course, they're importing some material and components and minerals, etc. for that. But overall, solar and wind, we have been doing very well. But we need to look at nature's method of absorbing carbon. That is trees. We have to enable. We have to enable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sri. Thank you very much. And despite your indisposition, you have been able to come. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Roy sir, പറഞ്ഞോ.
Thank you very much for giving much knowledge about this carbon, to reduce the carbon dioxide emission. സാർ പറഞ്ഞ 8 കാര്യങ്ങൾ ജനറൽ പബ്ലിക്കിലേക്ക് ബോധവൽക്കരിക്കാൻ ആവശ്യമുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളാണ്. കാരണം ഇപ്പൊ ഈ എന്തൊക്കെ മെഷേഴ്സ് ആണ് നമ്മൾ അഡോപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നതെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോ അതിനകത്ത് സാർ പറഞ്ഞ 7ാമത് പറഞ്ഞൊരു കാര്യം, പോസ്റ്റർ ലൈഫ് സ്റ്റൈൽ റിലേറ്റഡ് ചേഞ്ചസ്. അതിനെങ്കിലും ജനറൽ പബ്ലിക്കിനെ ബോധവാനാക്കേണ്ട ആവശ്യം ഉണ്ട്. അത് ഇപ്പൊ ഞാൻ ഈ വിവരങ്ങളൊക്കെ സാറിന്റെ ക്ലാസ്സിൽ നിന്നാണ് കിട്ടിയത്. വേറെ ഒന്നും ഇത് അവൈലബിൾ അല്ല അധികം. അതിനുവേണ്ടി നമ്മൾ സെർച്ച് ചെയ്യാറുമില്ല. പക്ഷെ ഇതൊരു വലിയ ഇതാണ്. ഇത് ജനറൽ പബ്ലിക്കിനെ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ സ്റ്റുഡൻറ് ലൈഫിനും ഒക്കെ സ്റ്റുഡൻസിനും ഒക്കെ ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് നല്ലൊരു വിവരം ഉണ്ടായാൽ മാത്രമേ പബ്ലിക് അതിനായിട്ട് തയ്യാറാവത്തുള്ളൂ. ഇപ്പൊ ഇതെല്ലാം മെഷേഴ്സ് ഇപ്പൊ സോളാർ വെച്ചാൽ മതിയല്ലോ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സാറ് പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ ഇലക്ട്രിക് മൊബിലിറ്റിയുടെ കാര്യം പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പൊ അവിടെ ഒരു കുഴച്ചിലുണ്ട്. ലിഥിയം നമ്മൾ പുറത്തുനിന്ന് ഇമ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യണം. അങ്ങനെ ഓരോരുത്തരും ഓരോരോ ഇതുകളുണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ അതിൽ ഏറ്റവും പ്രാക്ടിക്കലായിട്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഒന്നാണ് ഈ വനവൽക്കരണത്തിന്റെ കാര്യം സാറ് പറഞ്ഞത്. ഒരു വളരെ ഇതായിട്ട് തോന്നി. അത് ജനത്തിന് ബോധവൽക്കരിക്കേണ്ട, അല്ലാണ്ട് വല്ലപ്പോഴും കൊണ്ട് ഒരു മരം വെച്ചിട്ട് വനവൽക്കരണം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞത് ഈ കാർബൺ ഡൈ ഓക്സൈഡിനെ റെഡ്യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് സഹായിക്കുമെന്ന് ഉള്ള രീതിയിലല്ല ഈ വനവൽക്കരണം പബ്ലിക്കിൻ്റെ ഇടയിൽ ഇപ്പോൾ വരുന്നത്. അതൊരു പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യമാണ്. പിന്നെ സാറ് പറഞ്ഞ കാർബൺ ഇത് സ്റ്റീൽ പ്ലാന്റിനും മറ്റും ഒക്കെ ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ഫെർട്ടിലൈസ് പ്ലാന്റിലും ഒക്കെ കാർബൺ ഉപയോഗിക്കാതെ ഗ്രീൻ ഹൈഡ്രജന്റെ കാര്യം പറഞ്ഞു. അതൊക്കെ ഒരു പുതിയ നോളജ് അത്. അപ്പൊ ഗ്രീൻ ഹൈഡ്രജൻ ഉണ്ടാക്കി അത് അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യുന്നത് നന്നായിരിക്കും.
ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടെ ഹൈലൈറ്റ് ചെയ്യാം. സ്റ്റീൽ പ്ലാന്റിലും ഫെർട്ടിലൈസർ പ്ലാന്റിലും റൈറ്റ് റിഫൈനറീസിലും അവരുടെ പ്രോസസ്സിന് ഹൈഡ്രജൻ വേണം. ആ ഹൈഡ്രജൻ എവിടെ നിന്ന് കിട്ടും? ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ മാർക്ക്. ആരെങ്കിലും കൊണ്ട് തരുമോ? ഒരു പൈപ്പിൽ വരുമോ? സിലിണ്ടറിൽ വരുമോ? അപ്പൊ ഈ അവർക്ക് അത്യാവശ്യം വളരെ വളരെ ലാർജ് ക്വാണ്ടിറ്റീസ് ആണ്. എന്തിനാണ്? അവരുടെ പ്രോസസ്സിന് വേണ്ടി. അപ്പൊ അവരെങ്ങനെയാ ചെയ്യുന്നത്? കോളിനെ ചൂടാക്കിയിട്ട് അതിന്റെ മുകളിൽ കൂടെ സ്റ്റീം അയക്കും. അപ്പൊ അതിൽ സ്റ്റീം സ്പ്ലിറ്റ് ആയി ഹൈഡ്രജൻ കിട്ടും. ആ ഹൈഡ്രജൻ ആണ് അവർ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. പക്ഷെ അവർ ഒരുപാട് കോള് ബേൺ ചെയ്തു. ഇതിന് അവർക്ക് ഏതെങ്കിലും മെത്തേഡ് ഹൈഡ്രജൻ കൊടുക്കാൻ പറ്റുമെങ്കിൽ അവർക്ക് ഇത് ചെയ്യണ്ട.
സാറേ, വാട്ടർ ഇലക്ട്രോളൈസ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ ഹൈഡ്രജൻ കിട്ടൂലേ? ഇലക്ട്രിസിറ്റി വേണമെന്നല്ലേ ഉള്ളൂ.
അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് വാട്ടറിനെ സ്പ്ലിറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് ഹൈഡ്രജൻ ഓക്സിജൻ ആക്കുന്നത്. പക്ഷെ ആ വാട്ടർ സ്പ്ലിറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ ഇലക്ട്രിസിറ്റി പിന്നെയും വേണം.
സോളാർ ഇലക്ട്രിസിറ്റി ഉപയോഗിക്കാമല്ലോ.
സോളാർ ഇലക്ട്രിസിറ്റി യൂസ് ചെയ്താൽ അത് ഗ്രീൻ ഹൈഡ്രജൻ ആവും. ഹൈഡ്രജൻ തന്നെയാണ്, വ്യത്യാസമൊന്നുമില്ല. അതിന്റെ പേര് മാത്രം മാറും, ഗ്രീൻ ഹൈഡ്രജൻ. അതായത് ഞാൻ സോളാറോ വിൻഡോ ഹൈഡ്രോ ഇലക്ട്രിസിറ്റിയോ ന്യൂക്ലിയറോ അതെന്തോ യൂസ് ചെയ്താലാണ് ഗ്രീൻ ആവുക.
അതെ. ഏതായാലും ഈ സാറേ, ഇത് ഈ സ്റ്റുഡന്റ് പോപ്പുലേഷന് ഇതിൽ ഒരു നോളജ് കൊടുത്താൽ കുറെയൊക്കെ അവർ ഡെവലപ്പ് ചെയ്യാന്ന് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു. ഇപ്പൊ ഇത് എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ സിസ്റ്റത്തിലൊന്നും ഈ കാര്യങ്ങളൊന്നും
Sabu will arrange. There are other people who are involved. Sri Kumar is also in the teaching fraternity. So they will spread what is required, and this talk is already in YouTube, which Sabu will put it up. So it is easy for discussing further. ഞാനൊരു 3/4 മണിക്കൂർ 1 മണിക്കൂറിൻ്റെ അകത്ത് എല്ലാം കംപ്രസ് ചെയ്ത് എത്ര തരം പറയാൻ പറ്റുമോ അത് 8 പോയിന്റ് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു. പക്ഷെ ഓരോ പോയിന്റിലും ഡിസ്കഷൻ ചെയ്യണമെങ്കിൽ കുറെ മണിക്കൂറുകൾ എടുക്കും. കൺസേൺ ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ്സ് എങ്ങനെയാ ചെയ്യേണ്ട, നമുക്ക് എങ്ങനെയാ അത് കൊണ്ട് ഗുണം ഉണ്ടാവുക എന്നൊക്കെ. ഡോക്ടർ റോയ് വേറെ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടോ?
അല്ല, അത് സാറേ, ഇത് നമ്മളുടെ രാജ്യത്തിന്റെ പുരോഗതിക്കും ഈ 2030 ആണല്ലോ ലക്ഷ്യം വെച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന നമ്മുടെ ഒരു ടാർഗറ്റ്. അപ്പൊ അത് സാധാരണക്കാരിലേക്ക് ഇറങ്ങിച്ചെല്ലണ്ടേ? അവരുടെയും കൂടെ സഹകരണം ആവശ്യമുണ്ടെന്ന് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ഇതിന്റെ.
തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും.
അതിനുള്ളതാണ് പ്രധാനമായും സർക്കാർ ഇനീഷ്യേറ്റ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞ് അവരെയും ബോധവൽക്കരിക്കണം ഇതുപോലെ. ഇപ്പൊ സാറ് പറഞ്ഞില്ലെങ്കിൽ കൊണ്ടാണ് ഇതുപോലെയുള്ള ഞങ്ങൾക്കൊക്കെ ഈ കാര്യങ്ങളെ കുറിച്ച് മനസ്സിലായത്. ഞങ്ങൾ കുറെ ആൾക്കാരോട് പറയാം, അത് വേറെ കേസ് കേട്ടോ. പക്ഷേ അത് ആ രീതിയിലൊരു ഇത് വന്നാലേ രക്ഷയുള്ളൂ. ഇപ്പൊ സാറ് പറഞ്ഞ പല കാര്യങ്ങളും ഇതൊന്നും ജനറൽ പബ്ലിക്കിന്റെ ഇടയിലേക്ക് വരുന്നില്ല. ഇത് ഏതാണ്ട് ഹൈ ലെവലിലുള്ള ആൾക്കാർ മനസ്സിലാക്കി വെക്കേണ്ടതാണെന്നുള്ള രീതിയിൽ പബ്ലിക് നിൽക്കുന്നുള്ളൂ. ശ്രദ്ധിക്കുന്നില്ല. അതാണ്. ഏതായാലും ഞങ്ങൾ കഴിയുന്നതൊക്കെ ഷെയർ ചെയ്യാൻ ശ്രമിക്കാം എന്നുള്ളത് മാത്രമേ ഇതിനകത്തുള്ളൂ. താങ്ക് യു സർ. താങ്ക് യു വെരി മച്ച്.
താങ്ക് യു. സാബു.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You are. അയ്യോ അല്ല, യെസ് റീത.
ഒരു മിനിറ്റ്. നമ്മുടെ സാങ്കേതിക മുന്നേറ്റങ്ങളെയൊക്കെ വളരെ ശ്രദ്ധാപൂർവം ഉപയോഗിക്കണ്ടേ? ഇങ്ങനെയൊരു കാലാവസ്ഥാ വ്യതിയാനത്തിൽ, അതായത് നമ്മൾ പാരിസ്ഥിതിക പിന്നെ ആവാസ വ്യവസ്ഥയ്ക്കൊക്കെ ആഘാതം ഏൽപ്പിക്കുന്നൊക്കെ വളരെ കുറച്ച് കൊണ്ടുവരണ്ടേ? പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് നമ്മളെ കേരളത്തിലൊക്കെ ആണെങ്കിൽ ഈ സമുദ്രം കൂടുതലുള്ളത്, സമുദ്രനിരപ്പാണല്ലോ കൂടുതലുണ്ടല്ലോ, അതിന്റെ താഴെയാണല്ലോ ഇതുള്ളത്.
മനസ്സിലായില്ല സമുദ്രത്തിന്റെ.
അതായത് കേരളത്തിനെ സംബന്ധിച്ചിടത്തോളം ഏറ്റവും പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ടത് സമുദ്രനിരപ്പ് ഉയർന്നതും അതിന് മധ്യ കേരളത്തിന്റെ വലിയൊരു ഭാഗം സമുദ്രനിരപ്പിന് താഴെയാണ് എന്നുള്ളതാണല്ലോ. അപ്പൊ സമുദ്രനിരപ്പ് ഇനിയും ഉയർന്നതും ഗൗരവമായ പ്രത്യാഘാതം ഉണ്ടാകുമോ?
സമുദ്രം ലെവൽ ഇൻക്രീസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത് കൂടുതൽ ഐസ് മെൽറ്റ് ആവുന്നതുകൊണ്ട് സമുദ്രത്തിൽ പോകുന്നതുകൊണ്ടാണ്.
പിന്നെ
അത് കൂടുതൽ ഐസ് മെൽറ്റ് ആവുന്നത് എന്തുകൊണ്ട്? ചൂട് കൂടിയതുകൊണ്ട്. ചൂട് എന്തുകൊണ്ട് കൂടി? കാർബൺ ഡൈ ഓക്സൈഡ് കൂടുതൽ പ്രൊഡ്യൂസ് ചെയ്തു. എന്തുകൊണ്ട് കാർബൺ ഡൈ ഓക്സൈഡ് കൂടുതൽ പ്രൊഡ്യൂസ് ചെയ്തു? കോളും പെട്രോളും ഡീസലൊക്കെ എല്ലാവരും കത്തിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. അതാണ് മേജർ റീസൺ. നമുക്ക് കാർബൺ ഡൈ ഓക്സൈഡ് ഇല്ലായിരിക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല. ഞാൻ നേരത്തെ ആദ്യത്തെ സ്ലൈഡിൽ പറഞ്ഞതാണ്, കുറച്ച് കാർബൺ ഡൈ ഓക്സൈഡ് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിലേ നമ്മുടെ ഭൂമിയിൽ ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ കംഫർട്ടബിൾ ആയിരിക്കുള്ളൂ. ഹീറ്റ് ട്രാപ്പ് ചെയ്ത് വെക്കും. പക്ഷെ കൂടുതൽ കാർബൺ ഡൈ ഓക്സൈഡ് ആയാൽ കൂടുതൽ ഹീറ്റ് ട്രാപ്പ് ചെയ്ത് വെക്കും. അപ്പോഴാണ് ഐസ് മെൽറ്റ് ആവുന്നതും സീ ലെവൽ പൊങ്ങുന്നതും. ഇതൊക്കെ പ്രശ്നമാണ്. അപ്പൊ നമുക്കത് റിവേഴ്സ് ചെയ്തേ പറ്റൂ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പ്രശ്നമാണ്. നമ്മുടെ അടുത്ത ജനറേഷൻ വല്ലാതെ പാടുപെടും.
പിന്നെ നമ്മൾ കേരളത്തില് ഒക്കെ പറയുകയാണെ, കേരളത്തിൽ നല്ല എല്ലാ സ്ഥലത്തും ആണെങ്കിലും വിദ്യാഭ്യാസത്തിന്, എഡ്യൂക്കേഷനിൽ തന്നെ നമ്മൾ ഈ ഒരു സബ്ജക്റ്റ്, ഇതിന്റെ ആവശ്യകത ഒക്കെ ഉള്ള ഒരു സിലബസ് തന്നെ ഒരു പോർഷൻ കൊടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ, നമുക്ക് ബോധവൽക്കരണത്തിനോടൊപ്പം അതും കൂടി ഒരു സിലബസിലും കൂടി ഉൾപ്പെടുത്തുകയാണെങ്കിൽ കുറച്ചും കൂടി ഇതുണ്ടാവൂലേ?
ശരിയാണ്, ശ്രീത പറഞ്ഞത് ശരിയാണ്. പക്ഷെ ലെറ്റ് മീ ജസ്റ്റ് ഗീവ് വൺ ഇൻപുട്ട്. ഈ ഒരു സബ്ജക്റ്റില് ഞാൻ ഇന്ന് തന്നെ ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്തപ്പോ 8 ഡിഫറെന്റ് ആക്ഷൻസ് ആണ് ചെയ്യാനുള്ളത്, കൺട്രോൾ ചെയ്യാൻ. ഇതെല്ലാം ഒരു സ്കൂൾ അധ്യാപകന് പറഞ്ഞ് മനസ്സിലാക്കി കൊടുക്കാനുള്ള ബുദ്ധിമുട്ട് കണ്ടേക്കും. അതനുസരിച്ച് സ്കൂളുകളിൽ ഒരു സൂട്ടബിൾ ആയിട്ട് ഒരു ഡോക്യുമെന്റ് അവിടെ ഉണ്ടാക്കുക, അത് കൺസൾട്ട് ചെയ്ത് കുട്ടികൾക്ക് പറഞ്ഞ് മനസ്സിലാക്കുക. എല്ലാം ഒരു ദിവസം തന്നെ പറഞ്ഞ് മനസ്സിലാക്കണ്ട. ഈ 8 എണ്ണത്തിൽ ഒരാഴ്ചയിൽ പറഞ്ഞാൽ മതി, പിന്നെ അടുത്ത വേറെ ആഴ്ചയിൽ അങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞ് മനസ്സിലാക്കുക.
കുട്ടികൾക്ക് അസൈൻമെന്റ് കൊടുത്താൽ മതി.
അസൈൻമെന്റ് കൊടുക്കുക. ഒരു ജനറൽ ആയിട്ട് ഒരു ബുക്ക് വെക്കുക ലൈബ്രറിയിലോ സ്കൂളിലോ. അവർക്കത് നോക്കി പഠിച്ച് വായിച്ച് മനസ്സിലാക്കി എങ്ങനെയാണ് ചെയ്യുക. Let me admit that ഈ ഒരു പ്രസന്റേഷൻ പ്രിപ്പയർ ചെയ്യാൻ സാധാരണ എല്ലാ മാസം ഫസ്റ്റ് വീക്കിലാണ് ഞാൻ ടോക്ക് കൊടുക്കുന്നത്. ഈ ഒരു ടോക്കിന് വേണ്ടി ഞാൻ I had to extend it by 10 more days because so much of reading had to be done. India specific data had to be obtained. Then it has to be combined with government policy. എല്ലാം കൂടെ 45 മിനിറ്റിനകം പറഞ്ഞ് മനസ്സിലാക്കുകയല്ല, പറഞ്ഞ് കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ചെയ്യണം. So I was under a lot of pressure on this particular topic, but I was happy when I finished it, saying that so many people are taking interest to know more, talk about it more, and pass it on to the next generation. ശ്രീതേക്കുള്ള ആൾക്കാരൊക്കെ അടുത്ത ജനറേഷന് പറഞ്ഞ് മനസ്സിലാക്കി സാബുവിന്റെ യൂട്യൂബ് ചാനലിൽ ഈ പ്രസന്റേഷൻ കാണും. അവർക്കത് നോക്കി മനസ്സിലാക്കി കൂടുതൽ അതിനെപ്പറ്റി ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യാനുള്ള ഓപ്പർച്യൂണിറ്റി ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് കൊടുക്കണം. വീട്ടിലോ സൊസൈറ്റിയിലോ സ്കൂളിലോ എങ്ങനെയാണ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്, അത് നമുക്ക് ചെയ്യാണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നു. താങ്ക് യു സീത, താങ്ക് യു.
കോളേജസിലും കൂടി ഇതുണ്ട്, ഗ്രീൻ ക്ലബ് ഒക്കെ ഉണ്ട്.
കോളേജസിലല്ല, സർക്കാർ ഉദ്യോഗസ്ഥന്മാരെ പറഞ്ഞ് മനസ്സിലാക്കാനുണ്ട്. അവർക്ക് ഇത്ര ഡീറ്റെയിൽ ആയിട്ട് പോകാനുള്ള സമയം കിട്ടുമല്ലോ എന്ന് അറിഞ്ഞുകൂടാ.
ഒത്തിരി പറയട്ടെ, ഒന്ന് എന്നെ ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ചേർക്കണം. എനിക്ക് ഇന്നത്തെ സബ്ജക്ട് എന്താന്ന് അറിയില്ല, ഗ്രൂപ്പിൽ ഇല്ലാത്തോണ്ട്.
എനിക്ക് എന്റെ നമ്പർ അറിയാമെങ്കിൽ ഒരു മെസ്സേജ് അയക്കും എനിക്ക്.
ഞാൻ ഇന്നലെ നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുമ്പോ മെസ്സേജ് അയച്ചിരുന്നു, എനിക്ക് നോട്ട് ചെയ്തില്ല, മെസ്സേജ് അയച്ചിരുന്നു. സാറ് കണ്ടില്ലാവൂല.
ഉണ്ടായില്ല, ഒന്നുകൂടെ
കാർബൺ എമിഷൻ ആണ് മാഡം.
സാറേ ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ചോദിച്ചോട്ടെ? സാറേ ഇപ്പം ഇന്ത്യയുടെ കാര്യം പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ ഈ ഡെവലപ്ഡ് നേഷൻസ്, US പോലെയുള്ള നേഷൻസ് ഒക്കെ ഈ പാരീസ് കമ്മിറ്റ്മെന്റിനോട് കമ്മിറ്റഡ് ആയിട്ട് നിൽക്കുന്നുണ്ടോ? അവരും അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടോ?
They are all doing it. They are doing very well, in fact. The argument which India is giving is developed countries like US, Europe, somewhere else, etc. They have already emitted so much of carbon in the previous 10-15 years and already caused so much of global warming for their economy to grow. US-ന്റെ അവരുടെയൊക്കെ എക്കോണമി എത്ര കൊല്ലമായിട്ട് നന്നായിട്ടുണ്ട്. അവരത് അച്ചീവ് ചെയ്ത് എങ്ങനെയാണ്? They burn so much of coal, so much of പെട്രോൾ ഡീസൽ ഒക്കെ വെച്ചിട്ടാണ് അവർ അഡ്വാൻസ് ആയത്. നമ്മുടെ ചാൻസ് വരാറായപ്പോ അവർ പറയാ ബേൺ ചെയ്യാൻ പാടില്ല, കാർബൺ എമിഷൻ പാടില്ല, കൺട്രോൾ ചെയ്യൂ. അപ്പൊ ഇന്ത്യ സെയിങ് നോ, യു ഹാഡ് യുവർ ടൈം, യു ഹാവ് ജനറേറ്റഡ് ഇനഫ് വെൽത്ത്, യു have become a rich country by doing all this. Now allow us to become also rich. So India has asked developed countries to fund developing countries like India for climate, something called climate finance. അവർക്ക് പൈസ കൊടുത്ത് കാര്യം സോളാർ പാനൽ സെറ്റപ്പ് ചെയ്യാനും വിൻഡ് മിൽസ് സെറ്റപ്പ് ചെയ്യാനും വേറെ പല ഇൻഫ്രാസ്ട്രക്ചർ സെറ്റപ്പ് ചെയ്യാനും ഗവൺമെന്റ് പൈസ ഇടുകയല്ലേ കയ്യിൽ നിന്ന്. അത് ഇന്റർനാഷണൽ കോൺട്രിബ്യൂഷൻ വേണം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടാണ് they are trying to do that. കേട്ടോ ജേക്കബ്, താങ്ക് യു.
അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഈ ഡെവലപ്പിംഗ് നേഷൻസിലോട്ട് ഈ ഇലക്ട്രോണിക് വേസ്റ്റ് പോലെയുള്ളതൊക്കെ ഡംപ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടെന്നുള്ള ഒരു ഇതുണ്ടല്ലോ, അത് സത്യമാണോ?
അത് സത്യമാണ്. ഇലക്ട്രോണിക് വേസ്റ്റിൽ ഞാൻ സാബുവായിട്ട് ഒരു ക്ലാസ് എടുത്തിരുന്നു. ഇഫ് യു ആർ ഇലക്ട്രോണിക് വേസ്റ്റിൽ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഐ വുഡ് റെക്കമെൻഡ് യു ഗോ ടു സാബുസ് യൂട്യൂബ് ചാനൽ. അതിൽ ഇലക്ട്രോണിക് വേസ്റ്റിൽ ടോക്ക് കാണും. 8 മാസമായി അത് കൊടുത്തിട്ട്. താങ്ക് യു ജേക്കബ്.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And Sabu.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Good night. Good night to all.
We are waiting for your next talk.
Okay, I'm leaving. Thank you. Thank you. Next talk. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you. Bye, Sri.